talking isn't just about the words that you say. It's about why you're saying it, and the like how it will be heard. So the most effective way to communicate is to sort of speak to your audience, and that requires a lot of empathy and understanding of who you're talking to, like the things that are important to them, the things that they will understand without explanation, the things that they need explanation for.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion. Ooh. Oh,
I'm Old Man Raptor, and good morning, all. And we got one hell of a guest this morning, and that is.
I'm Yewnyx. How do I introduce myself? I am an engineer. Like, I've done VR for quite some time. I worked for like Oculus once upon a time. I also worked on a fairly well-known VR game, Bone Lab. Nowadays, I'm making my own game with some people I met actually in Vrchat.
oh wow.
Oh, okay.
Whoa. So, what got you
Nice.
started as an engineer and involved in all those projects? What are your origins?
As an engineer, boy, that goes way back. When my parents first got a computer, I was like 4 years old. I opened up the computer and tried to like mess around with it. And by mess around with it, I was like, oh, how does the computer run? Oh, command.com, which is like the thing that would start like the DOS prompt before you started Windows, because this is like Windows 3.1. And then I typed edit, and then I bricked the whole damn thing because you can't edit executable files. But 4-year-old me was like, what is this weird like stuff? Let me type something and save. And yeah, it broke. Yeah. But that was kind of the start of my curiosity, and my parents noticed this, thankfully, and so we would go to the bookstore. But the first place I would go to, and the only place I would go to, would be the computer book section, and I would just flip through there, and they just could not take me away from there unless they like literally bought me like a computer book, and I would just like read it up, and I started playing games, and like I have a huge fondness for like Wolfenstein, like 3D, and Doom, and Commander Keen, and all the early id stuff, because like you could get the shareware stuff, and like, man, I didn't even play the full game. I just played the demos like again and again. But I started to write some Visual Basic because Internet Explorer was like in the height of its like monopoly, I guess. And just learned how to make a terrible website with like a scrolling marquee going back and forth with like an animated GIF in the background of like a Pokeball and like a really cringe like cursor. I think also of a Pokeball or Pikachu. I don't remember which. Like, and it had frames and everything. It's just like the worst 90s like web page you can imagine. That was me as like a preteen, like 7, 8, 9 years old, making just my own expression of how much I liked Pokemon. I cringe, but like, hey, like I learned a lot. Yeah, that's some of my dark history.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So,
and like I was bad. Like I'm pretty good at programming now, but from the time I learned like some real basic programming stuff to the point where like I knew what curly braces were, like when programming, was 3 years, because literally I had one book and myself to teach me, and this was before like you had a ton of online resources and stuff. Like heck, we didn't even have to have a full speed like modem. Like it was like a super slow one. Like there was just like me and myself and a web browser, and I kind of had to bootstrap myself from nothing, with no mentors and nothing. So nowadays having a lot of opportunity to like teach yourself stuff, to like find someone else like or a community who like where people know what they're doing and to learn from them, like super valuable. And that was one of the things that really has made me stick around Vrchat for so long, is that I was lucky enough to meet a lot of people who just like knew so much more than I could ever like know, and to learn from them and to like find out like this entire like deeper universe, this layer underneath what we see, and to really like have fun exploring that.
Mm. So, from the dark history that you've mentioned to us, what led you into some of the first projects you mentioned to us about? What went from point A to point B?
So that's a long story, because like my background, like, so I worked for an anime company. I worked for a social like networking company. I worked for a VR company, and so it's like all those like I'm like VRChat is like a perfect place for me to like hang out, because it brings together like all the things that I've spent my entire life like enjoying.
Mhm.
I so like from how far back should I go?
Yes.
Smart ass.
All right.
So in 2009 I interned for Facebook, and like I had no idea what was what. I got that internship just on a total fluke. I was in university at the time. I just had no idea what to do with myself. I like, so like I should probably get an internship. I have no idea what kind of company is even interesting to me. Maybe I want to do hardware. Maybe like there's some software. Maybe I want to work on servers. I have no idea. And so like I just went around to this career fair, just chatted with a recruiter, and this one recruiter said like, "Oh yeah, you should totally like come see like what Facebook is about." And so I scheduled an interview, and I kind of blew it off. But then the recruiter like reached out to me, and I just like did some quick research and like blah blah blah, Facebook, social graph, whatever. And I came into that interview just totally bullshitting them. Like they was like, "Oh, what makes you so excited to apply to Facebook?" And I'm like, the social graph. The social graph is really like cool and amazing. And their eyes just like fucking lit up, and I was like, "Oh no, I said the right thing." And I got that internship, and then proceeded to completely screw it up. Um, I have a bad tendency to over-engineer things, and this really did not mesh well with like the team that I was on, which was very pragmatic. And they were right, I was wrong, but it took me most of my internship to learn that. Uh, the last 2 weeks of that internship, I just worked my ass off, even though I knew I wasn't getting the job offer, or internship offer, whichever. Because I think at the time there's other stuff going on, like in like the economy and stuff, that made me pursue like a job. And they said like, if you had worked this hard like your entire internship, you would have been a lock. And I was like, I I cried, but I knew that I had done the right thing by like just figuring out how to be an engineer, because I was like over architecting all this stuff, and I still have that tendency even today. But it was like, you have to be practical. You have to get things done, and your work as an engineer exists like within the context of the people who need it and the people who are paying for it, and like your own like ideals and like opportunities. So having screwed that up, I went to this like a couple more interviews. I interviewed for like a greeting card company, and they made an offer and then rescinded it because of um like they like asked for a reference, and my like boss in my internship was inexperienced enough, I think, to actually just truthfully explain how my internship went. And usually like nowadays you're just supposed to confirm that you were working for them for a period of time, not how you did. So that just got thrown out. I ended up working for like a friend, making an app with them. And we ended up sitting next to these two guys who were just converting this one app into like a photo sharing app. And it turns out that was Instagram. And so I got to sit next to them as they were creating Instagram. And their friend who had hired me to work on something for them ended up shafting me to the tune of a couple $1,000s because he was only paying for like half of what he promised, because the thing that he asked me to do was literally not possible. So I was like, screw him and screw those guys he's working with, like, and doing designs for. They'll never be successful. Naturally, they were very successful. Yeah. So I was like, well, whatever. Like, I got to find a job. And so it turns out that the friend who I was working with on the app, not the other one who I was contracting for, but like the one who like was actually still a friend, she had me chat with one of her, like, I think college mates, and that one had basically been like a co-founder of Crunchyroll. And so I worked for Crunchyroll for a time, which was really cool because you get to see a little bit of how the sausage is made. Like, sometimes, you know, you fall out of love with the thing when you see how it's made, but I don't know, I got to really be a part of like something I loved, and like I could literally watch anime at work, and I was like, cool, keep on doing that. I worked on like their apps and stuff, and I left out a little bit of extra history, but I'll probably skip that one because that was a terrible job. But yeah, Crunchyroll was pretty cool. Eventually, I kind of burnt out on it. There was some friction when it came to like how certain things were developed and like the pressures we were under. Yeah, so man, this is just way too long. But man, that is so much history. I ended up eventually working for another internship at Facebook, trying to give it another shot. And I worked on probably one of their most interesting projects, but it was full of people who were very intense, had a ton of imposter syndrome, and it was like a really tough team to be on. We all thought we were making something great, and we were all putting pressure on each other. And probably the best like app design that Facebook has ever done was on that team. But I again screwed the internship up because I was just like, I was still struggling to, I think, figure out how to work with the team. So I still had a lot more like maturity as an engineer to gain, because no matter how good I could do something myself, if I couldn't align with the people around me, like, we would produce something that was more disjointed and worse. Like, the components are only one part of it. Like, building the whole thing, if I couldn't be a strong participant, a strong contributor to that, like, I wasn't good enough yet. Yeah. Shoot. God, this is like, I'm spanning like 15 years of history at this point.
Well, thank you for going over it with us. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to have you regale memories you probably haven't thought about in a while.
I'm just trying to figure out what's important. Like, what is, because I don't want to be boring. Like,
I don't honestly.
wants
I
to
don't
go
think
over
you're
what's
boring at all.
important.
Like, I find this absolutely interesting. To at least I, as a person, do. So don't worry about it. If you want to go over all of it, go over all of it. If you want to shorten it, it's up to you. I'm enjoying it regardless.
So, yeah, I left that internship. Like, it's just like, again, I was left with this feeling. It was like, I almost got it, but I didn't. I wasn't good enough. I needed to find out how to be better. One of my friends, who I knew from college, who was also at Facebook, was starting their startup with a friend, and they were really good with JavaScript, but they needed a lot of help on like the mobile development side of things. And so I was like, all right, like let me at it. Like I'll help you guys out. And basically for a little, like about a summer, like plus a couple months, I just went to the guy's apartment in Palo Alto on the 10th floor, so it was kind of high up and it was kind of nice. Had a great view. Just wrote some iOS code, basically pointed out like, oh, here's how you do that, and then just basically sort of acted the role of like sort of a teacher slash contributor for a while, and taught them a lot, learned a lot, like threw away some of my biases because I was like the kind of like shitty tech bro, like engineer. It's like, oh, fuck that shit. This tech stack is the best. Like all the other stuff sucks. And I was like, at the time, I was like, JavaScript sucks. And I grew to not really like it, but is like appreciate it. It's like, oh, there's this entire way that people do things, and you have to show respect to people who are doing a thing and want to be relatively comfortable doing it. Because in the end, like no matter how inefficient or not best practices it is, the thing that I respect is putting work into something, doing something, getting it done. And if they invest in a tool that has its problems, you have to learn not, oh, why are they stupid, but oh, why did they choose it? What's important to them, and how are they going to build something with that? The worst thing that you can do as an engineer is to disrespect like a project that is clearly like mature. Like it doesn't get there without people putting time and effort in justifying it to themselves and to others and finding some value in that. And you need the intellectual humility to see this thing that you think sucks or that you hate and understand why do people love it? Why is it good? And how can I like take that for myself? And you do it by having a lot of empathy for people who are creating, no matter how different from you they are. And I've sort of carried that into game dev because when you build systems, it's not just about how can I make other programmers also make games. You have a much wider divide, not just other programmers who use different tech. It's like, how do I understand and empathize with artists? How can artists build these beautiful, like immersive worlds? They see the world in a different way because they're not looking at things and turning it into bits, and they don't see a mesh and a shader necessarily. Like when they look at something 3D, they also think about like the feelings and the visceral feel of the place. And I think the best VR is made by people who really build this, like they put their fingers into your brain and make you feel things in here. Like anyone can write code, good or bad, but not a lot of people can really like trigger feelings. Like the amount of inspiration I've seen from people like discovered in Vrchat, just like to me is just like super mind blowing. These are people who are creating entire worlds, and giving it to us for free. And I think that's really amazing. But I want VR to advance, and in order for that to happen, I feel that it's like super important to build the bridges to artists and do the hard things that they can't, and take that art and bring it to everyone else. And to do it with a healthy amount of respect for like the artist, because like there's too much tech in the world. Like I say this as an engineer, and there's not enough. How to put it? The future of VR is not better technology. It's better acceptance from people who are interested in it. And like there's such a, I guess, tech bro approach to it right now. Um, the whole idea of a metaverse is something that is just like super tech broed up at the moment, because it's not possible to create a metaverse. A metaverse doesn't get created. Uh, a metaverse is something that emerges from all the different kinds of VR that people are making. And as they start to converge and as people jump from one thing to another, like that's where the meta of metaverse comes from. And so I think it's the height of arrogance to call what we have in VR right now a metaverse. It's not. It's something different and also valuable. It's a third place where people can exist, that in a place that isn't their home and that isn't work, and gather together and have unstructured time to really socialize. And that's super important, but that's not a metaverse. Like we need to get there, but like what we have right now is just like baby steps towards that. And like oh man, there's so much feeling of inevitability about VR, and that's just not true. VR is just, it's barely happening, and it's getting better and better slowly, but like it's always hanging on like by a thread, and it's the people who are like super passionate about building it whose shoulders it rests. Like every time I hear someone saying, "Oh, the next big headset is going to be amazing, just wait," and I'm like, well, how long am I supposed to wait? When's it coming? I don't know that there's always definitely going to be like a next model or whatever. Like, and they say like, oh, don't worry about Meta, like screw them. Well, I mean, they're the ones putting $10 billion per like year in VR. Like, we have to work with what we have. We have to work within like a bunch of people who are trying to pour a ton of VC money, trying to invest in it, trying to cynically build it up. We have to work with people who are true believers, who really are in it for the beautiful, immersive art of it. And we have to somehow synthesize that together with engineering and money and art and all of this together to build the experience that to us feels as natural as breathing. It's like there's so much technology that lets me see my hand here with the lighting on it, that like my controller manipulates, that gets tracked, and lets me talk to you from across the world. And that stuff ain't free. The tech is so hard, and it's constantly changing, it's constantly breaking, it's constantly getting fixed. This stuff doesn't happen. Like, this stuff dies by default, and the fact that it's living year after year is nothing short of a miracle. And I think that it's like my mission, and like it will always be my mission to try and keep that going for as long as possible, and to try and find ways that this experience can live like well into my old age. And I really desperately hope for that to happen. And like just seeing and understanding all the stuff that goes on underneath. Like every day I'm just really fucking terrified that I'll wake up and some part of it will be gone. And so like that fear and that passion also motivates me to help build infrastructure that'll keep it going, that'll make it last. I want the cockroach that will survive the nuclear apocalypse, and I want it to emerge like stronger for it.
Well, if it's any consolation from all the conversations we had with people from all over this platform, I don't think it's going to die. There's too many people who are too passionate about building things for it to just go away. Like between the entire Basis Collective, then you have Vrchat, and then the people working with Bevy, then you have WireWiz doing his thing. Then there's Castle with his entire community doing that, plus a plethora of VR game studios are starting to sprout out of Vrchat, like Argus, for example. I don't think VR is going away anytime soon. Even if, let's say...
I'm not terrified now of it disappearing. I'm not less terrified of it now disappearing. I am still terrified that it will have decades-long stagnation. VR as a technology existed a long time ago.
Oh,
And nothing happened for like 10, 20 years because you had like Virtual Boy and all the really old, um, you had Virtual Boy and all of like the really old, not super great stuff, but like the basics of like motion tracking and stuff. And then like mobile phones came along and they set the stage for it to come back, but it didn't come back until someone, Palmer Luckey, whatever you think about him now, like he was responsible for like sort of kickstarting like virtual reality. And it just so happened that he picked the right moment because like phone technology had matured and like a bunch of different like physical like scientific innovations that made it possible had coincidentally happened because mobile phones happened. But like this stuff isn't inevitable. You can have the ingredients, and the ingredients can sit there for a very long time and not get put together until the right person comes along. And it's not necessarily that you require a great person, but someone with taste who knows how to put it together and present it to people and to really like turn it into the I guess the how to put it. I'm I have a word in mind, but it's kind of stupid. I'm like turning it into a mind virus, like the VR mind virus, like to really inspire people, and then for them to inspire their friends and other engineers and other artists to really build more. So I'm afraid that like if I want VR to be the best it can be, uh, like it is hanging on by a thread. The like we need everyone who loves it to really participate in making it better because like this stuff doesn't get better by itself. We like if you don't want to wait 20 years for like a Quest 4 or Quest 5, like obviously they're probably going to have something ready much sooner than that, but let's say hypothetically like something of the quality that you might expect and like guess on like an Index 2 or whatever kind of next generation thing. Like I mean it's been 5 years since the Index and people were just thinking, oh, it's coming next year for sure, right? And like maybe it's because I feel so close to all parts of building VR that I'm so afraid that like I don't know or care like how much it's going to stick around. What I'm afraid is that if I don't do what I can, it's going to get boring, and people who might have like loved it will just never find it. And it will take that much like more time for this stuff to become normal. Like, so going back to the third place stuff, like and COVID, um, the third place is very important for people to like socialize properly. And like we used to have like places for kids to go. Like they would go to their friend's place and play video games. They could go to libraries or something. They could hang out at the mall. They could go to a park. Like there were in like the early web, there was like I guess like I don't know Neopets and other relatively innocent like sites. Like there's that we had these places for kids to go that they could just socialize. Nowadays you have these heavily monetized places. You have like Rec Room, you have Roblox, you have Fortnite, and like the modern experience of being a kid and growing up and socializing is these endlessly enshittified places that you can't exist without it trying to pull some money out of you, trying to like infect you with that little bit of addiction and then yank that money out of you because you gave in to temptation. And so we don't have third places anymore that aren't trying to rob us blind. And that's probably overstating it. But like I want something a little more pure than that. I want like this space that you can go to where it really finally is about just connecting to people. And like to me, I love Vrchat. Vrchat is that place for me, and it was for me during COVID. but I also live in fear that, like, what if Vrchat didn't exist tomorrow? That would be such a huge and tremendous loss to everyone, at least all of my friends. And like they, how to put it, the idea of, for me, of basis is that I want to help the technical infrastructure continue to exist. What I am not interested in for now is building the social infrastructure, because that is really hard, and I respect VRChat so much for doing that. And that, what that means is, like, all of the like reporting and moderation flows, like trust and safety, God bless trust and safety, they have difficult jobs and they are underappreciated. They keep people safe, and they, like, VRChat has a very serious, like, moral obligation because they are this integrated social network. And that is terrifying to me. And that is something that, in order to really bootstrap, you do need something like a company. And I think VRChat is the right company to push that forward. But if it were to collapse, like, where would we all be? How would we find each other again? It would do a lot of damage. And I love VRChat too much to not hedge on that. And so, like, and there's another part of it, which is not just about users, but also about developers. Because going back to, like, you need to really understand and empathize with developers and artists. Like, a lot of people make amazing things in VRChat, but oftentimes they will also develop tools to make it easier to do so. And the best of them often start to get really frustrated because they run into limitations that are there as a part of the social infrastructure of VRChat. Stuff that makes it harder to crash other people, stuff that makes it harder to abuse someone else who is next to you. But at the same time, some of those restrictions are so harsh, they interfere with the creativity or even just the agency and responsibility to build something better. And so, in order to actually give respect to the people creating the content, there needs to be a way to offer them some agency and ability to produce their full vision. I think VRChat is tremendously like useful for sharing, for making something not just as an artist or as a programmer, but as a part of a community. But the price of that, like, as one gets better and better at it, starts to become steeper and steeper. And you can see this also in, like, so, like, the most recent betas in VRChat, like, they break something called sign triggers, which is a really, like, amazing tool that emulates some ways that the older, like, VRChat SDK worked for, like, triggers. And it does so by bringing it into Udon, essentially. That broke in the most recent beta SDK. And that means that a lot of these artists who are really good at creating this vision and using the building blocks that they know to build it, like, are going to have a very, very difficult time building that stuff in the future, because, like, when it breaks, it breaks. So how can they take responsibility for that? Because they have built it within a platform that has made it difficult at times to really fully support that. And it's a terrible place to be for an artist or for a developer, to be trapped within, like, walls that were made for a good reason, but made for someone else, and to not know how to free themselves from that. So, yeah, my core belief here, like, is that, like, developer agency is, like, super important, because content is important, and content is important because player experience, like, is important. And I just think that it takes a different path from VRChat. So I really just don't see them as, negative. Like it's complementary. Because we want on basis to do stuff that you can't do in Vrchat, and we don't want to do stuff that Vrchat is very good at. We want to explore like VR and help create the foundations like of a broader VR ecosystem. So the thing that comes to mind is like sort of online, it's like the world seed, like this thing that you plant in people's minds, that their artistic vision can be helped to be realized through this tool set that skips the stuff that they couldn't do and gives them time and motivation to do the things that they can and to exercise agency and control over that. Like if they want to publish it as a game, they can. If they want to just have this like small performance art kind of museum where there's a social experience that is just for them, like they can do that. If they want to do a limited time event, they can do that. And they can break the rules however they want. There's a lot of value in having a place where the rules do matter. But sometimes you just want to like escape that and you want to experiment. And sometimes you may even want to take what you learn from that and bring it back into the more shared environment.
So I've got a lot of questions, and I'm going to take the conversation back quite a ways, at least to understand a few things. Earlier on, when you were just finding your way as a game dev, I assume that's with Bone Labs and Boneworks when you were working on that project. How did you go from there into VRChat? How did you find your way here in the social VR space?
I was actually hired to work on Bone Lab because of VRChat.
Oh.
So I met one of the co-founders of SLZ in VRChat because he was interested in talking to someone, and I happened to also be there, and we got to chatting. And over the course of a long time, like I would just like rant every so often because I was at like Oculus at the time, and just yelling about some dumb thing that was going on at one time or another, because it's a large company. Like you have the corpo BS that happens. And I was just about ready to quit. There was just like some really dumb gaslighting going on at work where I was told it's like, oh, like you're like, you're it was like a performance review stuff, and they were telling me that like I was not like mentoring people, but I was very helpful to the new people on the team. And I'm like, what? That's the same thing. It's like, oh, you like rescued 3 projects, but like you're behind schedule. I'm like, but I rescued 3 projects like that were like going to fail, and I was just like ranting and ranting. And then I was like just like ready to quit. I'm like, are you hiring? Haha, unless. And I just happened to be super lucky because they were. Like I was like the last one they hired for quite some time. But yeah, I just like it's kind of funny because at the time I had submitted my resume also to VRChat to Ron actually, and Ron just ignored the resume, and he actually ignored it twice. And so I was like, all right, I think I'm going to see what it's like to make a game. And so I went to SLZ, and for 3 years just saw what it was like to make the systems, like how they thought. Like it's because like there were level designers, and there were like artists, and there were programmers, and what I brought to the table was like extremely rigorous like engineering like understanding. And what they brought was like, this is how we get stuff done. We have this vision, we're building it. And just understanding like when to care about structure and when to care about tools and when to care about art. I got a lot out of that.
Wow. So what was the experience like going from in VRChat to working with Oculus into working with the game studio? What were you expecting going into it?
So I actually worked at Oculus before I was ever in Vrchat. That was well before. I worked on the Quest operating system. Yeah, and later I worked on what is now called Meta Remote Display. But that was it was really depressing. Because the man, how much do I want to say? The operating system was really interesting because you had people who cared about design and code and stuff. And the depressing part of that was the political struggles of a director who really didn't get it, overriding things. And I saw firsthand some very, very good people at Oculus fall to that politicking. The second team that I was on, the remote display project, it was depressing because all but one or two of my teammates really didn't care about VR the way I did. I showed them once, like I opened up Vrchat OBS, like Access Overlay, and showed them like this is what like VR could be. This is like along the lines of what we want to and should build. And the people who are in charge of planning for the project, like the PMs and like managers and stuff, they were taken aback because they'd never seen something so amazing. I'm just like, really? Like, really? Like, the whole point of this like team is to be able to open your PC monitor like in your VR headset. How could you not have seen this? Like, how could you not have seen what it's like to exist in a space, have an avatar, have like floating windows, and interact with them? Like, this stuff not only like exists, but it's existed for a while. Like, if we're building the future, we need to know like the present and the past. And so, like, it was people who were very engineering smart or product smart, but I felt like they were the wrong people to build this stuff. Because if you had asked like, oh, would you ever spend like 2 hours in VR like without taking your headset off, they would say, God, no. I have kids or whatever. Like, because they were at a point in their life, like, and a lot of them had like motion sickness and stuff, and like these people are just structurally not in love with VR. They have so many things going on in their life, and they're like just not in it enough to sort of acclimate to it, to like it, to care, and to love it. And I'm like, man, this is so rough. Because if I care, if I want to be a part of pushing these things forward, I have to put myself in front of these things, be loud and annoying, and sometimes even suffer the consequences, because like it doesn't matter sometimes if you're right, if you're annoying about it, but at the same time, like speaking up is how you teach people. So that was the start of it. And I walked away from that in order to sort of be closer to like the people I cared about. Like working on a game meant that every decision really has to care about the player experience. It's like you make stuff in a level, and that's supposed to surprise or delight someone or frustrate them because it's challenging, and then make it fun because they overcame the challenge. Just there's so many different emotions and enjoyment and like that goes into creating something, where like on the surface of it, sure, a game is pointless and the application is useful, but when it comes down to it, like the emotions and the love and the passion for VR is really more purely expressed by like games. And building some app where nobody else but me really cared about VR is the most depressing thing in the world.
I can understand why that would be. So I take it going in from where you were to Bone Labs and with that team, was that a better change being with people who
Oh,
cared?
absolutely. I have nothing but respect for that whole team. And as with any kind of game dev experience, there are parts that you like and don't like about it, and there's certain pressures that feel unfair. But um, like the engineering ability of like the CEO and the tech lead and the artistic taste of the art director and co-founder, like and then the passion and inspiration from like the leveled and gameplay designers. um I it was rejuvenating to me. You had a bunch of people who gave a shit, who were thinking about people, and the fantasy and enjoyment of creating this virtual world. um Whether or not they had something to go home to, and they did, like when they came to work, it wasn't just, we're just making a product. No, it's like, we're making something that people will find fun. How do we get there? What do we need to do? And how can we make it better? And just like the level of give a shit at that place was so high. Um, and like I will never forget that experience. Um, the the It was a little bit difficult, just physically speaking, because like I had to move to somewhere far away from family and friends. And um to me it was kind of a sacrifice, and to them it was a place that they like had a really strong affection for. And because like it's in this one part of LA, which is a pretty grungy, and it used to be full of like different places to eat and different kinds of um it was basically, COVID made it a lot quieter and a lot more boring. But to them, they had such a long history with it that that was just the one blip. And for me, my experience of it was somewhat harsh. And so I would go to work, and work was my world for that period of time. And so I was very intense and serious about some things there. And um, I hit a point where I was kind of bummed out and burned out by some things, and just a couple things came together that put me past my limit of exhaustion. And I'd always wanted to work with two people. The people I'm working on my game with now, and I wanted to hire them to the studio, but if that wasn't going to work, then I wanted to find a way to do it. And they themselves were at crossroads. They were finding their own path and their own future and career and stuff. And I'm like, all right, so I've always wanted to move to Japan. I've always wanted to make a game, and I like where I have a say and where I can help push the vision. And I trust these two people, and I want them to have that experience too. And so I was like, all right, I guess the time is now.
Oh wow. So what is the current game you're making, may I ask, that made you want to move that far for?
So they're not in Japan. They're in the U.S.
Ah,
Just to be clear,
okay.
I moved here because I wanted, before before I was too old to really appreciate and be active, to see what living in Japan was like. Spoilers: it's fucking amazing. The food is great, and public transit works, and it's not super stinky. So, 2 thumbs up. Um, but um, yeah, no, I like the two people I'm working with are Centauri and Cascadian, and yeah, I got to know Cascadian over the course of 2 years. And um, dude is so smart and so good. Like, he is both an artist and a programmer, and he picks things up. And I'm like, if this guy doesn't work on VR, that's a huge fucking loss. And so he wanted to work on it, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to really go as deep as he wanted. And like, I've had a ton of respect for Centauri for just a very long time. Like, she knows how to get shit done. She builds the art. She also does like the programming, and I wanted to learn from her like how to be effective, because like again, like this whole story arc of me finding out ways in which I was just not good enough, becoming smarter, but then realizing I wasn't good enough at actually doing stuff. Like, book smarts versus street smarts. Like, I would ascend in my level of technical excellence, and I would just not really keep up in terms of like, okay, but how do you actually do stuff? And I'm like, and just like stumbling on like the different parts of building my career. Like, I started to get a feel for like what I needed to be better at, and for me, like the best way for me to learn is to see what someone who I believe is much better than me is doing, and imitate them and try and understand and empathize with what they do, to try and like take that for myself, to build it into how I work and who I am as an engineer or as a developer, or like I wouldn't even call myself an artist yet, but I want to learn what it's like to be one. So when I build stuff for them, I can really make it something that they vibe with. I want to be able to communicate with someone who isn't an engineer and use terms in a way that they will understand what I'm saying without getting lost. Because like I could talk your head off about like low level memory allocation, blah blah blah, like smart pointers, etc. Just like the technical nitty gritty. But that is just strictly like communication loss if you're not able to receive it in the way it is intended. And so like communication is like such a huge skill for any kind of active creation, because like no man is an island. Like if you are building art or if you're building engineering, and you don't have the skills to do all of it at once, well, someone else is going to do part of it. And if you can't tell them, here's what I hope for this to do, what it can't do yet, what I think is important, what do you think is important, and just sort of understand how to understand them, then you're not the best creator that you can be. Community and communication are such a huge part of the act of creation. Did I just repeat myself? I just repeated myself.
In this moment, I'd like to share something. You mentioned communication, reminded me of something someone told me, and I wish I could remember where from. But in essence, the test and ability to know if you mastered your skill is in your ability to explain how to do it to someone who doesn't know. If I'm understanding that concept correctly. So what you said, learning the ability to explain how to do what you do to someone who doesn't know, is a testament to your ability to do what you do. The mastership of your craft, I guess, is the way to put it.
Hello, I'm actually here to interrupt the episode you're watching really quick to ask you a favor. Please come join us at any of the other locations we have. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify, both of which we post our episodes and are very up to date on both. We have Discord where you go to hang out all the time, where you're gaming and shooting the breeze over with many people over that way. Feel free to come join us. I invite you. If you wish to support us, we have a Patreon where we post a bunch of random bits, bobs, and extra podcasts every once in a while for you to go enjoy. Also, if you wish to support us while on Vrchat, we're now part of the creator economy. So please come join if you wish to support us there. It's there for you to choose if you so wish. And thank you very much. And a special thanks to some of the people who have signed up on our Patreon, which are as follows. And I have written down so I'll remember. And that's a tough thing. Forbidden Zero, Niche, Aliquum, Future Oracle, Lesser Capybara, and Frozen. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, because the talking isn't just about the words that you say. It's about why you're saying it, and the how it will be heard. So the most effective way to communicate is to sort of speak to your audience, and that requires a lot of empathy and understanding of who you're talking to, like the things that are important to them, the things that they will understand without explanation, the things that they need explanation for. And so the most of saying something is about listening and understanding and hearing like other people and the signals that they put out, and also about understanding how your words will be received by them, crafting the meaning and the connotations and the specific words that will be heard by them. Because like this is true for like scientific, mathematical, programming, technical concepts as well. If you can boil it down to a simpler concept and then build it back up, there are some people who will understand that much better than using some advanced word. Like using some advanced word may make you feel smart, but if what that sounds like on the receiving end is a bunch of line noise, what you said was actually nothing, not something smart. And if it's superficially smart, but the other person doesn't come out with a better understanding, like why did you talk to them at all?
Understandable.
I got a question for him, Line. What do you do in a situation where you're trying to explain, but you have people out there that are hands-on? They're literally hands-on situation. How do you deal with that?
What do you mean?
Okay. Some people in the world and everything else like this, you could talk until you're blue in the face, but they only catch a little bit what you're saying when you're trying to show or understand, if you're telling them, well, you need to do this, 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 and this. And a lot of people can't click. You see what I'm getting at? It doesn't click. But when you show them straight up what you're talking about, it all falls into suit. How do you work with something like that?
Well, the more you can make things concrete and prompt them for questions, the more you can get a feel for what they understand or don't understand. So depending on what it is, and sorry, no examples come to mind, but like if you can make them participate in where you're asking a question, just a gimme question that like they're following along, just sort of where they can just like nod, but you can sort of read them to see if they really got it. Like, then you can just like continually like get a sense for where they're at. I don't know. For me, that part was mostly just built up by intuition and time, like trying to see how someone looks like if they're not getting me, and just putting out little feelers in a conversation to pull them in and make them more engaged. And if they're not engaging, then guessing that maybe they don't get it and asking them questions. Like, and there's nothing wrong with feeling a little bit vulnerable and saying like, hey, sorry, like I might be confusing here, or like, sorry, like if this is like a little bit like poorly explained, and just like you show your own vulnerability, because you're not really losing anything by showing that maybe you're fucking up the explanation. Even if it's fine and it's just that they're confused, because they need to be able to feel okay with exposing a little bit of that vulnerability, that they're confused. And like it's part of the emotional interplay of just a normal conversation that a lot of people, especially people who are really good with tech, because I used to be this way too, like just completely miss out on. Because it's also really easy to just be super, super like, I am extremely correct, and the correct answer is this, and it is this for this reason, blah, 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 right? And like that is like, there's no negotiating like in that kind of conversation. It's very like abrupt and blunt, and like for some people very intense. But sometimes someone just needs to feel like they are an equal participant in a conversation, because if I am talking to them, maybe it's because I want them to understand something, and it's my responsibility to equalize that ground, to lower myself in air quotes, like not, it's because it's not actually shameful. It's about seeing them at eye level and trying to understand what that is to them, and try to use your words to communicate the idea in the way that teaches them or teaches you like how to really turn this idea into words and turn those words back into the right idea.
Got another one.
1 second, I have to recalibrate my headset because it is fucking up and it's actually making me motion sick.
Of course.
Today's news, we have weather that's actually raining outside. Oh, sorry. My bad. It is actually raining outside, so I can't really say that. It's wrong. I'm a good weatherman. Hey, it's raining outside. You ever notice you're going down the road and you hear the weather person on the radio, right? You're driving down the road. We have so percent of chances of cloudiness and maybe 30% chances of rain. And you're looking out and your wipers are just going ape shit. Yeah, I wonder if it's actually 30%. You know, you just look at it. Is it actually 30% where you're looking at, or are you just not looking outside the computer, outside, and just looking on the computer, watching the weather go through? Hello.
Oh,
I'm just, welcome back.
welcome back. You know, I do.
Welcome back.
Oh, you said you had another question?
Yes, I had a question. Once you're in VR and stuff like this, when somebody comes up and asks you certain questions and stuff like this, gets to know who you are, what feelings do you get when you get somebody completely off the blue that asks? It could be something off the wall. What's the weirdest thing off the wall that somebody's come up and asked you and you had to sit there and process it?
So the question is like, have I like? Sorry.
Okay, to make it simpler, okay, if somebody comes up like me, like what you're talking about is like me, you're talking stuff that way before my time. You know, I was still playing in DOS situations and bitched about it the whole fucking time, trying to figure, because typing so much crap just to get something to move compared to what we have now and everything else like this. What do you do with somebody that comes in, somewhat understands your line, but doesn't catch it in VR? Because, you know, you don't have that body motion. You don't have any of that. All you got is the voice, like you were talking earlier. And they ask you a question that's completely off the wall. Is it possible? What do you give them in return?
So like if someone is asking me something that is just totally just takes me aback and I'm not prepared for it.
Yes.
I mean, first step is I listen and I try to understand and ask questions. Oh, like, I don't quite understand your question. What are you trying to find out? Or just like probe them for what the context of their question is. Like, because like if it's something that's totally out of anyone's ability to understand, like, are they trolling? Are they coming at it from a point of view where they know something I don't? Or maybe they don't know something I do? Like, are they an expert in something that I had no idea about? Like, it's a learning experience either for them or for me. And if it's a waste of time, you know, maybe you just develop the skill of understanding that it's a waste of time and you just try and gently redirect the conversation back to where it was, or, you know, gently, you know, split the conversation. Like you're not obligated to perfectly engage in every conversation, and you're not perfectly equipped to engage in every conversation. And you know, not everyone deserves the same amount of time. Because like if it's just you're hanging out with people, like maybe you just want to socialize. If you're with a specific group of like nerds that are talking some kind of tech, maybe someone else knows. So figuring out how you can listen to them, have them talk more, like, and probe them, like, instead of like me being the one talking and sort of throwing out feelers for understanding, maybe proactively participating and guessing and saying like, oh, so do you mean something like this? And they'll, you know, the desire of someone who's technical to say, no, that's wrong. Here's how it actually is very strong. And so if you can make wrong guesses, that can actually help them figure out how to explain what you're confused about.
Okay, I gotcha.
So, how did you find your way into Basis, and what have you been doing with them?
So, I knew Dooley a while back. He's actually the one who recommended me to join Prefabs, which is a community of world creators. It's not really active as much anymore, but it used to be a place where there were a lot of people who were very active in world creation, and I socially integrated with that group for a while. It's kind of funny because I hung out with a lot of those people for a very, very long time before they realized that I actually wasn't in prefabs, which was frustrating to me. But I it was a nice place for a time for a lot of people from all different parts of Vrchat to really explore Unity and explore Vrchat with each other. And so I knew Dooley like from there. And separately, I had also in like spoken to other friends where like I believed that in the long term for VRChat to truly live beyond like the life cycle of a company of investment and stuff, that we needed to have an open source framework for VR. And it's like, and again, it's like no disrespect to VRChat because VRChat is a pioneer here, and I think they have great taste. But every company has this life cycle. They get investment, they build something amazing, or don't and die. And they build something amazing, and it gets adoption. But then the bills have to be paid, and so we see this with VRChat, like focusing on the creator economy, which I totally agree with. It's a great thing that they're doing. But like this is late stage VRChat. Like the version of VRChat that we have played up until now, and the version that we will play from here on like forward, is going to have a different feel to it. The like communities that were making a bunch of free prefabs and a lot of just wonderful things to put in front of everybody's eyeballs and to just delight them. Like the economics of that have changed. And artists deserve to be paid. Like creators deserve to be paid. And so providing them options to get paid is a good thing. But it does mean that this sort of art commune style of operation is much less sustainable. You will still have people who create because they love creating and give because they love giving. But if you make a really good like prefab, like some game that you can put in a world, and someone makes a world that just does that 100 times better based off of your work, and then they make a lot of money off of some kind of monetization in there. Like, this doesn't even have to be a real situation, but you can feel afraid of it happening as a prefab creator. And maybe you will talk less to someone who could help you. Maybe you'll be a little less open about that prefab. Maybe you will keep your friends closer and just sort of close off from the broader community. And so like creator community, like creator economy is something that is both probably going to be the best thing that VRChat's ever done and the worst thing that they've ever done, because it's the thing that will let the company last for a very long time. And it will let people build their livings in a much more stable way for the long term, because like Gumroad is not a great like platform, and you see that with people escaping to Jinxie because Jinxie actually cares a lot more. And VRChat also has a lot to offer here, like discoverability and like availability and just assurances that like, hey, yeah, this will last for as long as we can make it. It'll be compatible. Like we'll bring new features to the platform, and this is what's going to enable it. But in the end, like this kind of goes back to the whole like third place and deeply monetized things. You have Roblox, you have Rec Room, you have like Fortnite and stuff. And it's not that these aren't still fun or interesting or places where people can hang out, but they are subject to the economic forces that drive them. And I don't think it's fair to say to an artist, you have no options and we make the rules and you must obey them. and because like eventually you're wrong. Like the artist, the programmer, the creator does have a good idea, and you're wrong for saying no. And what tools do they have at their disposal? Sorry, been talking way too much. And what tools do they have at their disposal to actually like prove to you that they're right and you're wrong? Like they need the power and the agency to actually do something and say, I'm right. Here's why. Play this and make you understand. Because if you have a strong opinion and you know you're right, and you would have to spend 4 or 5 years of your life proving it versus 6 months to a year, like that is going to change your life. What like if you will accept that they are wrong and you can't change it, or if you will do something to prove it. And the more we can convince someone who can make a fantastic thing, to actually just go out there and do it, and to like maybe actually sell it, you know, put it on Steam, put it on like Oculus or whatever, and say like, okay, well, the reward for you being right is that people will see and buy your thing or otherwise engage with it like on your terms, not on anyone else's. Is a really powerful thing.
Okay. So how long have you been with Basis, and how has your experience with doing this kinds of thing alter your view of as a regular VRChat player?
It hasn't altered my view as a regular VRChat player at all, because I have always had a very deep appreciation for everything the VRChat team does. I know some people might blame me for this, but I was VRChat team does. I understand the ways in which like the things that VRChat does to make the player experience a better one are difficult to understand, and they can't be completely transparent about. And maybe they could be a little more transparent, but the way that they reconcile this creator sandbox with this social environment in third place is something that is very challenging to do. And from the point of view of having worked for a social network, I understand there is a lot of deep, dark corners, many of which you never see. Like, and again, this is also why everyone should just thank the trust and safety team a lot more. They don't realize that for all the failures that they see, there were many times more successes. Like there are like on any platform of enough scale, there are some truly awful things that happen, and that people who really deeply care fight against at the expense of their own mental health, at the expense of their just long-term happiness sometimes, because they understand things that go on and they've seen under the veil. Man, I lost my train of thought. Damn. After saying something that intense, I was just like, sorry. It's
I'll ask the
like
first
late at
part
night here.
Oh, I'm sorry for keeping you up so long. I'll ask the first part of the question.
No
avoid the last
worries.
one. How long have you been with Basis Mask?
From the beginning, I think, but not as an engineer, but actually as a communicator, because I have this very broad set of experiences that has helped me to understand how to really communicate what Basis is. And Dooley is like the heart and soul of Basis. I'm the mouth, in some ways. Like maybe that's egotistical, but like he is all about building the thing and less about picking the right words to talk about it. And when I chatted with him about it, we understood that we vibed exactly on what Basis was. And so what I give to him is my ability to try and pick the words to explain what it is. Because I think that, you know, it is a struggle for someone who doesn't know what Basis is to come into it and say, oh, this is like this other social platform, like whether it be Vrchat or Chill Out or whatever, and say, like, well, superficially you have like avatars, you have worlds. How is it not literally a competitor? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's like there is so many things about that stuff that is so hard. Like, and again, like social infrastructure. Vrchat is not a Unity game. It is a whole service. It's a community. It's like all of the different incentives for people to do things, to pay for things, to like not do things, get banned for certain things. And Basis is a much, much, much smaller pocket that is like a lot more like a Team Fortress 2 server than like a, you know, CS:GO match-made server. And the amount of space that we do not want to take up is enormous. And like there's also like the more you try and say, oh, I want to make this but better, the less originality and the less inspiration like you have in convincing others to also work on it, because like at the end of the day they don't see the same problems you do. And like we still love Vrchat, but it's this developer agency and experimentation and the beauty of like creating like art and programming that is not possible to do, along with like the hedge that like, hey, open source VR should exist, along with the practicality of there's other projects which are much longer like in their lifetime, more dedicated, have done some really interesting things like Vsekai and their engagement with Kronos and all of the other stuff. Like we wanted to hit this like niche where it's like, how can we actually get something in people's hands, and you know, build that bridge from a VR that is enclosed to a VR that can properly fertilize the ground for this metaverse to exist. And that metaverse, again, like can only exist as the convergence of many, many different people bringing their own like biases and artistic vision and technical capabilities, and bringing that to people and eventually bringing those close together. So if I play one game, I can play another game to build this common language of interface and interaction and stuff. And VR is so hard that everyone right now has to do it on their own. And so everyone has a slightly different solution. It's slightly jank. It works a little bit differently. Your muscle memory screws you over because, oh, you press the A button, not the B button, or grabbing worked differently. Like, there's a lot of friction that happens because of that. And the rising tide lifts all boats, you know?
Yeah.
So this toolkit is intended to lift those boats. Whereas you know, the different products that exist are just in a different universe altogether. And you know, this is was never ever built out of any kind of spite or resistance. It's a belief in what people can create, not a desire to take anyone down. If someone is enjoying Vrchat creation or making a living off of it, I think that's wonderful. The more people who can exist in more places creating a better VR for everyone, the better. I just think there's this missing thing where people who wanted to go beyond what Vrchat could offer them, or who never had anything to do with Vrchat at all in the first place, could create a game and say like, oh, I don't know how IK works because that's really hard. I don't know how VoIP works because that's hard. Like, I don't know how to make an asset bundle properly because that's hard. Like, what if we could tell them, don't worry about it. We got you. Focus on your game, make it fun, make it beautiful, and enjoy yourself. Like, isn't that wonderful? I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it is very wonderful. What would it take, do you think, to see the future that most of VR enthusiasts would like to see it become? What do you think it'll take to get there? You know, like the Ready Player One-esque experience that all of us kind of sit here and go, what if kind of thing.
More content and a way for people to jump from experience to experience. So what I call, and this is more basis specific, I call it player migration. Basically, the mechanisms for players and servers to handshake with each other and say, like, hey, these people were with me. We want to connect to this server with this game, and have some continuity there. Like, oh yeah, they were currently in some kind of state. Like maybe you have a chain of games that are sequels or something, and you finish like one game and you made some decisions, and the next one has something where those decisions matter, right? The way for that game one to say, hey, like we're moving to game two, like on Steam with this other server with these people who had this like save game, right? The amount of communication between those games that has to happen to actually make you like the same person in game one and game two like is kind of hard because you have to negotiate what information matters. Does this game care about your avatar? Can you play as only 4 characters and that's artistic vision, so you must choose one of those? Or does this one let you bring your own avatar? What restrictions are there on that? Like, what can it do? Like that is, I think, the thing that will be needed for an actual metaverse to emerge. A way of boy, I'm really tying themes together here. A way of communicating between games so that they can, on equal terms, negotiate what the experience is going to be.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for explaining that as well. I have another weird, interesting question I like asking people after hearing your entire history and what you've worked on. Looking back, how do you feel about the journey you've been on since you first put on the VR headset and found VR at first to where you are now?
That's a hard one to answer. It feels like a poorly written story. Where I did a lot of interesting things, screwed it up, and didn't really learn the lesson until much later. I did damage to personal relationships because I wasn't mature enough to really figure it out. And then I just think back a couple of years, and I just constantly cringe at the person that I was. Every year I find a new way in which I sucked 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and I tell myself that means I'm getting better. And boy, I'm clinging on to that pretty fucking hard because I have been very cringe at various points in my past. And if I'm not getting better, that's a lot of wasted time. But, I define myself in very simple ways. I want to make VR better. I want to make it something where artists want to use it to build these virtual worlds, and I want to experience those virtual worlds. And it's a little bit selfish, but I think it's a nice kind of selfish, because like I think that the emotions that other people will get from a beautiful place or a place where they experience things I can't even imagine. They meet people, have conversations that I would never in a million years have. Like just the chaos of people talking to people and feeling like they're next to each other, rather than rotting away alone in their room looking at Twitter all day, like consuming social media, like doom scrolling through TikTok. Like that's hell on earth. I want to give people a place to talk to people, not a place to die on the inside while the information like seeps into our brains and we fail to handle it. Like for someone as into tech as I am, I fucking hate tech. The amount that our brains have gotten destroyed over time because we have progressively destroyed all the infrastructure to just talk and relate to one another, like to find truths that are true for me and you, and not true for the loudest, most hysterical people on a social media platform that doesn't care about you. I want to exist in a better world, and tech used to lie to itself and say that it was about making a better world. Now it's just mining people for every last bit of value that it can. And I want to just like say, fuck you. Like, we're making this shit better.
Well, thank you for enlightening us, and I do hope you find the future or able to build the future that you're looking for with tech. Honestly, I do.
It won't be me. It'll be everyone. It's like I won't have anything to do with the next big anything, but hopefully I'll inspire someone who does.
Okay. Well, we'll ask the last couple questions before we start wrapping this up. First of which is the name used in Vrchat, where to come from, and why to use it.
So I thought I was being clever, and I was just like trying to think of a name because my previous one, I just didn't like it. It was kind of meaningless. It was just some random shortened version of some, like, I think, computer club that I was a part of. Not even, no, it was a cultural club, like from high school or something. And so I was like, all right, well, shoot, what do I do instead? And I just thought it was clever to have like you, so like a kind of wood, and Nyx, so like a night fairy kind of thing. And like this like fantasy, like and Yewnyx is the nerdiest thing ever. It's just like there is nothing more computery than Yewnyx. So I thought, this is mildly amusing, I'll go with this, and it kind of stuck.
Okay. In
the funny thing is that one of the people I respect the most on a technical level it took like several months to ask me if that's what it meant. I'm like, dude, we've known each other for how long? Like, yes, it means that. Like, yes, it means Yewnyx, like, as in like the operating system. Like, you know what that is. And we just like chuckled about it.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. It's very much appreciated. And the avatar you're in, why to use it? And is there anything about it that means anything to you?
Yeah, I mean, so this particular one is a mixture of 3 different avatars. So the face is from the second version of my avatar. And let me back up a bit. I originally just used some random like Overwatch avatar. Like the assassin, like from like the PvE events. I moved over to some Honkai Impact looking avatar, and then I was like, oh, I should probably have my own avatar. And so I, along with artist friends, designed a male and female version, and I found a really, really good Korean video game artist, like Joker Y, and they just did a fantastic job of turning it into an avatar. But it was not something that I could really iterate on because it was just the avatar. Like there was no such thing as a base like there. It was just the full model, and they sort of got super busy for a couple of years, and so I couldn't make a new one like with them. So I sort of created a new one, but didn't, because I wanted it to be similar. And so it has like similar hair and has, like similar design elements to it. Like the finger gloves, like these aren't finger gloves, but on the other version of it, like they are. And I found another artist who just made just the best Blue Archive fan art. And they were doing commissions, and I think I was actually one of their final commissions before they just stopped taking them all together. And they said like, oh, maybe if you design like a punk-ish looking one, but also kind of like not super punk. And so it's more of like a bit of a casual kind of avatar. And they made that. And then I waited for like a year because I asked a friend like, hey, who do you think would be like perfect to make this avatar? And we both sort of both at the same time said like, Mari, because I've followed her for a long time, and I knew that she was just like on top of being a fantastic artist, just a wonderful person, and just did amazing work. And so I waited about a year. I applied twice, and she accepted me into the second round, and she was just a joy to work with. This particular version was this part of it was modeled by DevTexture. When that was sort of the first try at redoing the old avatar, but it didn't work out because we couldn't get it to hit right. There was something about the design that didn't quite work. And so this was 1.5, whereas this one was version 2. And so after a while, I decided to see if it could be salvaged. And because the one that I usually use is something that is very comfortable for me to wear amongst friends. But I also believe that when you're presenting yourself to a broader audience, a lot of people in Vrchat do present themselves with a little bit too much skin. And no disrespect towards anyone who wears what they're comfortable with, but when it comes to actually just putting yourself forth and talking to people who don't really understand what Vrchat is or what VR is, who don't get it, one of the bridges that I think is necessary to build is being a little more conservative in the attire. And again, no shade to people who prefer what having just the standard Vrchat outfit. I got no problem with that. But I also want to make sure that if there is a bridge that I can build that isn't hard to build, I don't mind doing it. And so I needed an avatar that was a little bit more formal, not necessarily I'm wearing a suit and tie kind of thing, but something that is more accessible. And so I had the idea of resurrecting the model that I had set aside, and putting the newer head onto it. And it worked out pretty well. So, I switch between this avatar and that avatar, and I usually use the other one. This one is the one where if I'm putting myself forward in a more formal context, I might choose this one. Yeah.
Oh,
that was a lot of words for explaining that. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I just launched into this 10-minute explanation for a very simple question.
No. I think it's a perfect answer. The reason why we ask those two questions, your name and your avatar, is one of the things the most personal about Vrchat or these social VR experiences, how you present yourself. Your name, the avatar, the shirt, the clothes, the funny little robot that follows you around. A lot of people put some time into that. So at least understanding how and why you want to present yourself this way kind of opens us up as to, I guess, a way of finding more lore, what happens. We may see you again. Next time we see you, we'll know that answer.
So
that's all.
I actually had no original intention to wear a female avatar. I actually wanted to wear a male avatar. It's just that when I commissioned the male and female versions of the version 1, I had a lot fewer connections to artists in Vrchat at the time, because I was a little more at the beginning of my journey in Vrchat. So I couldn't find someone to rig the male version of it for the longest time. And so I just took to wearing the female one. And I'm at some point, I'm kind of okay with this. But I do have a male version of this one designed and waiting modeling. And I'm probably going to try and see how that feels for a while. I have given thought to, at times, maybe creating content myself. I have stuff to do. I have my game to work on, but I think that as just the next step in developing my communication skills, I think it would be fun to maybe figure out how to present myself to an audience and to work on something, but also engage people in a very active way. I'm pretty good at holding a conversation one-on-one, I think. Please tell me, please. But when it comes to one-to-many, I think I'm not nearly as practiced there. And again, it's another one of those things that is more accessible. I don't mind male or female avatar. It honestly makes no big difference to me. But if I wanted to reach out and talk to people, wearing a male avatar, because I do personally identify as male, like, and the fact I'm okay with this, I love my avatar. I think it's pretty, and I like looking at it in the mirror. But at the same time, like, if I'm talking to someone who absolutely does not understand this stuff at all, like, the first question might be, it's like, oh, but why are you a female? And I'm like, uh, then I like have to explain some of the social context. Like, this is a place that's very inclusive, where people can express themselves, where people can see themselves, and for many, it's a very deeply personal thing. And like, in order for me to answer them, I have to not minimize that, right?
Mm.
Like, even though for me it could go either way, like, it's super important for someone who's coming into there to understand what they're asking, and like the level of respect to afford people for whom that question might actually be upsetting. And so, yeah, it's like, I want to both be more presentable and communicate, but at the same time, um, I don't want to miss out on that super important context.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for explaining all that. Learning a bit more about you is amazing, and it's been an awesome even hearing all about you and your tale. So thank you for your time, by the way. It's been absolute honor to hear all from you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the opportunity to yap and yap and yap.
And we enjoyed listening. If the audience,
that's right.
if the audience wishes to reach out and find you or any of your projects or even the game you've mentioned you're working on, where can they go to find you?
The game is still, we're a little bit quiet for now. We're calling it Magnet Game just as a placeholder. We don't have a formal name for it yet, and we're making all the tech. So don't look for us there. We'll figure it out once we get to like the content stage. To reach out to me, best place is probably the Basis Discord. And that's the terms on which I want to engage with people, to talk about the things that they can create, the ways they can build up VR and make it better. So I think that's the place to go.
Alrighty. Well, we'll have that in the description for the audience to click and find. One easy place. For YouTube, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see the episode description. Hit show more. We have a section labeled out guest link, so one easy place for you to find. Same thing if you're on Spotify, except it's in the episode description, but not right below the video. Well, right there for you to find. And this is the part we'll ask you, the audience member, a question. What is a moment in gaming or something in gaming that has made you fall in love with it? Obviously, you're watching a YouTube channel about a bunch of people pretending to be characters in a video game with a giant toaster strapped to their face. So obviously, you may have some interest that we'd like to hear yours. So with that being said, Mr. Raptor, you know the thing.
Yeah, no matter what, folks, even if you think you got this toaster on your face and you put butter or jam on it, or in the situation of running with his lead, when you're in here and everything else like this, a mind or situations that you want to enjoy or do, no matter what it is, never be afraid to ask those questions. Because I do, and sometimes they're weird. But no matter what, have your coffee in the morning and see how that kicks. We'll talk to you later. Bye. I was an adventurer once, till I took an arrow to the knee. Howie. It hurts so bad. Mom! Mom, I took it out to the knee. I was an adventurer. What happened, Mom? Damn, Mom's not home. Mom's not home. I forgot the key, and there's no mat to put it under. Maybe it's under here. Maybe she put it under the, melted the bitch in the fire. Well, that hurts. God, I'm a loner. Ventura is my situation. When you take an arrow to the knee. But too bad it didn't hit me in between the toes. But it made me loopy, though. Are you a god? Oh, wow. I know. I'm not even at the right house. That's why.